There are forces of good and forces of evil at work in the world today. What are these forces? Who is responsible for the good? And who is responsible for the evil? Richard Schaff talks about current events which are rarely discussed by the mainstream media, events that affect us all. This program seeks to identify, to inform, and to equip the believer for what's ahead. Welcome to What in the World is Going On?
This is What in the World is Going On. I'm your host, Richard Schaff. Our program is sponsored by Lincoln Log Homes. We are pro-Christian, pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, pro-American, and here by the grace of God. I saw something on Fox News Friday past that I want to bring to your attention. It was called Walkaway Campaign. You can find this on Facebook or on YouTube. Just dial up walkawaycampaign.com. This is primarily to tell you about an organization geared for those moderate Democrats, those independents that might be a little iffy. They don't like the riots going on. They don't like the tearing down of our statutes. They don't like the killing, the defund the police movement. Walkaway Campaign. They've currently got 86,000 reported members. 43,000 more were reported being vented as of last Friday. Saturday, they had a rally in Baltimore, Maryland. They have them throughout the country. This, ideally, for those who aren't the radicals, who want to see another way, who are opposed to the destruction of our free society. Walkaway.com. I'm leaving a link on it below for you. I want to call your attention to a few reasons why I believe, and I think you'll agree, that Biden needs to be defeated this coming election. Can you imagine a government in America with Biden and whoever he has really running the government in there as vice president? Nancy Pelosi, Botox and all, over at the House, and Chuck bald-headed Schumer controlling the Senate. Wow. Beto on gun control. ACO taking care of our climate. Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't our future as a republic be great? I see where one of the reasons we want to talk about Biden today is that he made this statement. I wish schools taught more about Islam. Yeah, Joe Biden wants to be president of the United States. He made that statement while attending a recent Million Muslim Votes Summit. He wished more Islam faith could be taught in the schools in America. A quote, I wish we talked about all the great confessional faiths. This was all said during the summit hosted by Engage Action. That's the country's largest Muslim American PAC. This reported on Fox News. They noted it's one of the great confessional faiths. Wow. A quote from Engage Action. The PAC switched its endorsement from Biden in April after initially endorsing the candidacy of Bernie Sanders. Biden also said that he would end President Trump's travel ban on Muslim-majority countries on the first day of his presidency and blamed our president for an unconscionable rise in Islamophobia. In addition, the former vice president said he would not write love letters to dictators, that he would champion the rights of both Palestinians and Israelis to have a state of their own, and he'd work to meet the moral demands of the humanitarian crisis in Syria, Yemen, and Gaza. Several Muslim American officials, including Representative Omar, that's the Democrat from Minnesota that was married to her brother for a while, she, plus the Attorney General of Minnesota, Keith Ellison, former representative, Representative Andre Carson from Indiana, all Muslims. On Monday, they signed a letter endorsing Biden, saying their, quote, number one goal is to remove Donald Trump from office and to replace him with someone who can begin to heal our nation. Well, folks, I don't know about you, but anything those folks are for, I can pretty much be against in total. By the way, other Democrat leaders, including 16 Democrat nominee Hillary Clinton and former Vice President Barack Obama, kept their distance from Engage. Clinton did not endorse them when she was running. Obama was very cautious. Of course, he didn't want to take any part particularly considering the conspiracy theories about his faith. They'd been circulating around, if you remember the election in 16. Another report on the same subject from a different source, this one from Christina Layla. Biden, she noted, recently spoke to the Million Muslim Vote Summit from the comfort of his Delaware basement. Sharia law advocate and radical Islamic leader Linda Sarsour actually spoke at the event, confirming Biden's quotes, "If I have the honor of being president, I will end the Muslim ban on day one." Biden said this, recorded it, sent it to the Million Muslim Vote Summit. Wow. Under this administration, we've seen an unconscionable rise in Islamophobia, an instance including kids being bullied in schools and hate crimes in our communities. A quote from the one wanting to be president, Joe Biden. It even gets worse. Again, he said, American children should be taught more about Islam in schools. I wonder if Biden has ever studied what happens when the Islams take over a country. They don't need a majority, you know. They just need a good, strong voice. And we can see what they can do behind the scenes even in the cities that are now being ravished across America. Biden also touted Muhammad, the founder of Islam, who, by the way, did own slaves and partook in the slave trade. Hadith from the Prophet Muhammad instructs, and I quote, "Whomever among you sees a wrong, let him change it with his hand. If he's not able, then with his tongue. If he's not able, then with his heart." Biden gave that quote as part of his endorsement. Now a word why we don't want to support Biden for president. A word to our evangelical followers, our Pentecostals, conservative Catholics. Vice President Pence reminded voters just past week that Joe Biden is a radical, a socialist candidate who supports tax-funded abortion and abortion on demand. Newsweek reports Pence exposed the pro-abortion Democrat increasingly radical left stance on abortion during a campaign event at Ripon College in Wisconsin. He criticized Biden, who claims to be a devout Catholic, for supporting, quote, a culture of death, one that goes against his faith and most American beliefs. Did you happen to know, folks, that Biden had been denied the sacraments or the communion of his own church? Yeah, the leaders over him forbid him the sacraments of the Catholic Church. Joe Biden supports taxpayer funding of abortion, repealing the Hyde Amendment, ending a Mexico city policy that prevents federal funding from supporting abortions around the world. Pence said, and I quote, "And Joe Biden even supports late-term abortion, allowing innocent unborn children to be aborted right up to the moment of birth." That's right, folks. They can be right in the birth channel, and he believes it's legally and morally right to kill them. Wow. Pence said that Biden, the presumed Democrat nominee, has embraced a socialist agenda similar to that of U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders. The Liberal Views outlet admitted that Biden, quote, did not offer unequal support for abortion. He also flip-flopped on tax-funded abortions last year under pressure from pro-abort lobbyists. Pence praised Trump for standing up without apology for the sanctity of human life. The two candidates' position on abortion, folks, could not be more opposite. Biden's position is radical and out of touch with most Americans. He supports abortions without restrictions. He wants to force taxpayers to pay for them. Biden even opposes religious freedom for the Little Sisters of the Poor. Those are the Catholic nuns, a charity that serves the poor and elderly. By the way, the Supreme Court just recently found in their favor. Biden promises to codify Roe v. Wade into federal law and to restore funding to Planned Parenthood. You know, that's the largest abortion chain in America. Because of Roe v. Wade, the United States is one of only 7 countries in the world that allows elective abortions after 20 weeks of pregnancy. You know, folks, Biden's been bought and paid for by the Planned Parenthood group. Unlike past Democrats, Biden has not talked about wanting to reduce abortions to make them rare. Last April, he went so far as to call for the killing of unborn babies and abortions an essential medical service. Those were his words. Good listeners. President Trump has enacted pro-life and religious freedom policies that Americans support. He defunded Planned Parenthood abortion chain. He took away at least $160 million in taxpayer money that was being given to them. And his two U.S. Supreme Court picks ruled in favor of a pro-life Louisiana law just this last June. Internationally, Trump has been pushing back aggressively against the United Nations pro-abortion agenda and insisting that countries support women and children, born and unborn. Starting in 2017, Trump stopped giving American tax dollars to the the United Nations Population Fund because of its link to forced abortions in China. Just a few of the things in pointing out a little bit of the differences between what we have and what Biden would give us. Well, a bit of good news, a July update. He's back. Well, he could be. You see, Trump is gaining on Biden to a near tie in that new Rasmussen poll. Trump finally turned a corner. I like the look of it. He had a sizable rebound in the polls. According to Rasmussen, and they're one of the 2 or 3 most reliable pollsters, if not the number one, Trump is running neck and neck with Democrat rival Joe Biden. A recent report in the Washington Examiner has revealed all of this. A week after finding that Trump closed a 10-point gap with Biden to just 3 points, Rasmussen reported on 7/23 that Trump has edged up yet another point as Biden appears to have hit his ceiling. On Wednesday, July 23rd, the race stood at 45% for Trump and 47% for Biden, well within the poll's margin of error. Incidentally, this was published in Rasmussen's weekly, quote, White House Watch feature. Separately, Rasmussen said that Trump had boosted his approval rating to 49%, with 50% of respondents disapproving. What's interesting is that this stage of his presidency, former President Barack Obama also had a 49% approval rating and went on to win re-election with 51% of the vote. People are starting to make up their minds, you see. It's significant that Rasmussen is a pollster that reports the near overtaking of Biden by Trump. Rasmussen forecast the last election, the one in 2016, with very close accuracy. What's changed is that Trump is getting out there more. He's having some press conferences. He's being featured more of himself on some coronavirus meetings. His defense of Western civilization and American history against leftist thugs and barbarians is taking hold. And his brilliant speech at Mount Rushmore, this may have taken a little time to sink in, but certainly it's starting to sink in now, and people are starting to listen and value what he said. There's also the leftist chaos and mayhem in the blue cities, these that Joe Biden has yet to condemn. Americans don't like that kind of Caracasization of their country, which in fact is a destruction of our freedom. They don't want to see cities such as Chicago become Mexican-style shooting zones and leftist cancel culture, right down to the toppling of statues and the renaming of sports centers. It's taken a toll on them. And you know, these nuts out there, they took down a statue of General that were fighting on the Union side. Yeah, they took down those statues. What they want to really take down, you know, is the American flag. What they really want to do is take out all of our history. What they really want to do is take over our country and destroy our republic. But you see something starting to sink in, and voters are starting to make up their mind. And you know, it couldn't come at a better time, and it's likely to keep on getting just better. You know, people are starting to think, and when they think, the polls will change. This new poll shows how voters feel about Trump's latest move to combat violent crime, posted July 23rd. President Trump announced the expansion of Operation Legend and the deployment of additional federal law enforcement officers to violent, crime-ridden cities around the country. A quote from our president, "Today I'm announcing a surge in federal law enforcement into American communities plagued by violent crime. We'll work every single day to restore public safety, protect our nation's children, and bring violent perpetrators of justice. What we've been doing and what we're seeing now happening all around our country, it's got to stop. We've just started this process, and frankly, we've no choice but to get involved and to clean it up. A Trump quote. This latest survey from Rasmussen Reports shows the majority of voters back the decision and reject calls from Democrats to defund the police. The latest Rasmussen Reports national telephone and online survey finds that 55% of likely U.S. voters think federal law enforcement officers should be used to fight the growing level of violent crime in major cities, since the cities appear unable or unwilling to handle the problem themselves. 36% oppose this federal anti-crime help. 66% of Americans opposed reducing the police budget in the community where they live. 61% believe violent crime will go up in communities that defund the police. And certainly, folks, we're seeing that happen right now. And remember this, something else we've got on our side. Most Americans are afraid to share their political views. I talked to you about on my program previously on this. Bottom line, what it says is that a lot of people are going to vote for Trump that aren't going to talk about it at the country club, where they work, with their neighbors, at the school meetings, maybe because they don't want to feel like, oh, I don't want that reputation of being a pro-Trumper. But when they get in there, they do vote for Trump. That happened in 2016. And it appears to be what a lot of people are believing now. A report that I got this past week from the Cato Institute, nearly 2/3 of people in the United States are afraid to share political views with others. The survey showed that 62% of Americans think the political environment keeps them from expressing their opinions. The number of people reluctant to share political views has risen from the 58% we saw in 2017. 31% of liberals, 30% of moderates, 34% of conservatives are worried their political views could get them fired or harm their career. This, according to the Cato survey. Their quote, "There have been shifts across the board with more people among all political groups feel they are walking on eggshells." And added, majority of Democrats, 52, independents, 59, and Republicans, 77%, all agree their political opinions and they're afraid to share them. The political Cato survey reported that the majority of people in several racial and ethnic group practices of self-censorship, with 65% of Latino Americans, 64% of white Americans, 49% of black Americans expressing fear to share their political thoughts. This large number from across geometric groups suggests withheld opinions may not simply be radical or fringe perspectives in the process of being socially marginalized. Instead, many of these opinions may be shared by a large number of people. That's the opinion from the Cato study. Thought you might like to hear it. And pollster John McLaughlin, he notes that the media surveys say that they are deliberately underplaying the Trump voters. His report, media reports are deliberately underplaying Republican voters by as much as 9% to give the false impression that President Donald Trump is well behind in the race for the November election. That a quote from Trump pollster John McLaughlin a week ago. Speaking on the Cats Roundtable radio show in New York, McLaughlin explained that, quote, "The media is polling all adults, not just likely voters. If you poll likely voters, like Rasmussen did, where you see a model of actual voter turnout, Republicans who vote over 90% for Trump will be about 1/3 of the poll. They were 33% in the exit polls in 2016. When you do all adults, there aren't as many Republicans because any adult in the United States could mean anybody, even non-citizens, could be in that poll because they randomly call cell phones and landlines." McLaughlin emphasized that when the polls do that, which he insisted they are doing on purpose, you just cut out Donald Trump's vote total by 8 to 9 points. So, of course, you're saying we're getting blown out, adding, "It's the same thing that happened 4 years ago. 4 years ago, all those polls said that Donald Trump couldn't win. And look what happened." McLaughlin said that reality is that, quote, "We're headed for another close election because the Republicans and Trump voters are coming out. The Republican voters are enthusiastic. The Trump voters are enthusiastic. The battle is really over the independents, the middle," he noted. We've got to win the independence in the battleground state. The media right now have a lot of these polls, and they're sandbagging us. And you know, folks, we've got one other thing on our side. We've got a prayer meeting coming up. We've got a prayer meeting in progress right now. Evangelicals, Pentecostals, conservative Catholics. We've got pro-Christian Jews. We've got forces around the world praying. Our Lord heard our prayers in 2016. To God that he'll hear them again one more time. And you know why? This is really great the way this is summarized. GOP House Leader Kevin McCarthy is from California. He's the head of the Republican Party in our House of Representatives. If you watch Fox, you see him quite a bit. Pretty good guy. And he notes that this election could be the last Republican president in the White House right now if we do not re-elect President Donald Trump. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy went on Fox News Hannity program and said it's vital for the Republicans to win in November. If not, he said, and I'm quoting, "I don't know if we'll ever have an opportunity to win again." You see, they're going to change the rules of the game. They're going to change how we vote. They'll change, in California, where I'm from, they now allow people who are not even citizens to vote in the school board races. In California, they lowered the voting age to 17. In California, you could turn your ballot in 17 days after the election. These are things they're doing right now where they control it. One state. And that's what they'll do across the country if they control our country. They'll expand the Supreme Court, and there won't be 50 states. There'll be 52 states. How? Puerto Rico and the District of Columbia. Well, McCarthy should know. As he mentions, California is leading the Republican state in disenfranchising Republicans and conservatives. Ballot harvesting, which he alludes to, steals election. It cost the GOP several House seats in Southern California in 2018. Illegal immigrant voting and voter fraud are rampant in California, as no voter ID is practiced or even allowed. County election offices are filled with partisan Democrats who will do anything and everything to keep and put Democrats in power. As Joseph Stalin said, and I quote, "It doesn't really matter who votes. It matters who counts the votes." At the national level, if Democrats win in the fall, the Supreme Court will be stacked with a rubber-stamped far-left majority, and Puerto Rico and the District of Columbia will become states, adding 4 Senate seats and numerous House seats to the Democrat total. McCarthy isn't kidding or overblowing this. Almost everything is on the line. McCarthy, who spoke at a recent unrest on American streets, said, and I quote, "We want to focus on bringing this country back, rebuilding it, restoring it, and renewing it. And that means in law and order and justice must prevail." McCarthy will sponsor a bill that will strip federal funding from states and cities that do not enforce laws against vandalism or public property. The president is fully on board with this, as are a great majority of Americans. It's all on the line, folks. It's all out there for us. It's time for us to pray for divine intervention. And as we do, remember one thing. If the lights of freedom go out in America, the lights of freedom will go out around the world. And now a word from our sponsor. This program is sponsored by Lincoln Log Homes. I am the CEO of the company. If you call our toll-free number, contact us in any way. Our toll-free number, 800-848-3310. I'll work with you personally. I'll talk with you on the phone personally. I'll quote the house of your dreams to you at the best price that you can possibly get any place in America. Contact us. We've been in business since the 70s. We're members of the Charlotte Better Business Bureau. And I am Richard Schaaf, CEO, host of this program, and I'm the one to contact you to service your needs from Lincoln Log Homes. Goodbye until our next broadcast.